I briefed you guys on this a little bit before, so like how drugs actually work and how the sale of drugs actually works. But Rob is the only one that has the innocence of not knowing anything about the drug world, to my understanding. So,
Yeah.
so Rob, what?
That's right.
What's your understanding of the drug world, Rob? How does the illegal drug trade work? To your understanding, just like, off
to
optics.
be honest, my only knowledge when it comes to actual any type of drugs would be any that involve THC.
But like, where do the big ones come from, though? Do you think, like, just based off the movies we see, what we hear in the media?
Well, Mexico is where they always tell you the drug smuggling is coming through, and you see the tunnels that they're using, or at the time used in the 90s to smuggle cannabis into the country. But now it looks like they use those same tunnels or new tunnels for fentanyl.
Yeah, so that's correct. But what if I told you that in reality, the cartels and the gangs and the mafias, those are all just the front men, the pawns for the richest people in the world who have been the biggest drug dealers for the last 400 years? Would that,
by the way, you don't think he'd believe it? No, of course he'd believe it. I believe it.
Why?
So Brandon, like, so the cartels and everybody, the mafias, whoever's into not mafias, apparently. Well, I mean, they probably dabbled in it, but all the cartels, the higher ups are doing it. So how are they doing it to get the money in their pockets and not get arrested? Is basically the question.
Yeah, so there's a lot here. I got all this information from a former MI6 officer named John Coleman, who wrote a whole book on this, The Committee of 300. Like I said, I'm talking about that in my Secret Society book group. But so the way that they do it is there's this banking system set up called the chip system. It's the clearinghouse for these type of payments, and the largest banks in the world, a lot of them like Credit Suisse, American Express, they all have a program that can clean drug money and launder it. And it turns out that the DEA is kind of just like a facade. They only catch like the little, drug dealers that are not really part of this big establishment program. But so, like, to put this into context, the British East India Company, actually, we could play a clip right here from this documentary that hit on this a little bit.
The documentary?
Documentary,
and what
Pirates of the Caribbean.
This is Pirates of the Caribbean?
Yeah, and it references what's going on.
All right, let's see this.
The East India Trading Company has need of your services. We wish for you to act as our agent in a business transaction with our mutual friend, Captain Sparrow.
So the reason I show this is because
I want to watch it.
Thanks. So yeah, so the reason that I bring this up is because the British East India Company, they were making in the ballpark of $150 billion a year selling drugs in the 1800s.
What? Wait.
That's not adjusted for inflation.
Wait. Say the money again.
$150 billion a year
in the
1800s. Yes.
And what would it be adjusted to inflation right now? In the trillions?
Yeah.
Holy
exactly.
cow.
And that's why this guy Coleman says that the people that are actually the richest people in the world are trillionaires, because they've been like running drugs for the last 400 years. And so the British East India Company is not around anymore, but he claims that the descendants of this company are the richest people in the world that are part of this big committee of 300. So this chart shows opium imports into China from 1650 through 1880. So they were able to import opium into China. They got 10% of the entire Chinese population addicted to opium. So that's like 40 million people. Yeah.
And what way? Like, you don't care about their health. You don't care about shit, and they're addicted. We talked about this earlier, bro. Have you ever been around a drug dealer?
Yeah.
Like, have you ever hung out about Rob, like a real cocaine, or like, I'm not talking about weed.
No, because I think those are different levels than I ever dealt with.
Yeah, but
like I was like with a guy named Doo, and like he had a snake, and then he'd tell me about his like graphic novel collection, which is just comic books, turns out. But
By
that's
the way,
like the guy who I'd go to.
By the way, I want to clip that, and somebody better make a photo AI of who this guy Doo would look like.
Oh no, there's mugshots of Doo.
Oh,
so
really?
we could just go to
I'm imagining
Pinellas
Delhi.
County Sheriff's Office and find him.
When I went to school, I didn't have a car. My boy Tito
Tito and Doo.
I'm sorry. I didn't know he was a drug dealer until one time we were going back home because we live close to each other, and he makes a drop. He opens up the glove box, 2 bricks of cocaine, a gun, and I just sat there and shut the fuck up. That's what you do.
You don't talk?
Yeah, you don't talk.
Yeah, but
we never talked about
ever,
it.
yeah,
I kept on getting rights. We never talked about it.
So Rob,
nice guy though.
There's a point, Connor, and everybody like an actual like a drug dealer actively, like he sells. He has bags on him. He has like 8 balls. He has any
My dad was a cop, and I went to a private Christian school.
Okay, so
what do you
yeah.
think?
So your dad was around. But
People used to get kicked out of my school for having a joint.
So, Brady, the point I'm trying to make is I hung out. I was around these type of people, and I'm telling you right now, the level of just transactions, people, girls, it was nonstop. He had to tell people, like I heard him on the phone, like, stop showing up to my house at 4 o'clock in the morning. Like, it was L.A. It was just so. Imagine if they get you hooked on that level, bro, on countries and all that stuff. It's freaking astronomical.
Think about how desirable that is from the standpoint of somebody who doesn't care about like morals or ethics in terms of it being a business. So typically in a business, you have to have the best product, you have to give great service, you have to sell the idea of your item, you have to pitch people on it. But all that goes out the window in drugs. In drugs, it's the perfect product. You grow it out of the ground. It's people get addicted to it. It has incredibly high margins. And so, like you said, you don't have to do any work to try to get people to buy stuff from you. They're fervently coming.
Yeah, Brandon, you're not promoting it. There's no commercials. There's no ad space.
Yeah,
you're just it's good. It's like you make me think of Breaking Bad. If it's good, if it's blue, what the hell is it called?
Blue meth.
Blue meth. It's you know what I mean. They're never gonna stop.
And think about the attitudes of drug consumers that would have been going on back in like the 1800s. There were no drug enforcement agencies. There were no international restrictions on drugs. Like the reason they were so successful at selling opium is because it was just a recreational substance. You used to relax with like a pour a glass of brandy and light up the opium pipe.
But you know what? There's deeper political repercussions to this. People argue because China doesn't plan like the West. They plan in like 1,000 years, 100 years.
Of course,
revenge.
And they're plotting revenge. Like they say, the opioid crisis here. That allegedly most of the precursors and some of the fentanyl is made in China, and they're using the Mexican cartels to push it here as revenge of what the Western world did to them.
Yeah.
And think about where so many of those drugs are coming from. China has the market cornered on synthetic drugs. There used to be things like bath salts and flocka and stuff like that. A lot of that was chemical runoff coming from China that was then passed to Mexico for the cartels to distribute across the border. Now it's fentanyl, same thing, where a lot of the fentanyl offshoots are coming from China. But the OG drugs, opium, heroin, stuff like that, that's Afghanistan. And think about what's gone on in Afghanistan.
Speaking of Afghanistan, look at this next chart. So it's not that one, the one that shows the two... The one that shows Afghan... Yeah, there we go. So there's the Golden Crescent and the Golden Triangle... Oh yeah, so there's the Golden Crescent and the Golden.
Brandon's like this.
What? I do it a lot. I do it a lot. I do
like
it a
walking
lot.
away. So there's the Golden Crescent and the Golden Triangle. These are the two primary places in the world where drugs like opium and heroin come from. Wow. And I'm sure it's just a coincidence that the Golden Triangle is where we spent 20 years in Vietnam, and then the Golden Crescent is where the British Empire spent a bunch of years trying to conquer Afghanistan. That the Russia tried to conquer Afghanistan. The U.S. spent 20 years in Afghanistan. And wonder why? Was it because 90% of the heroin in the world comes from Afghanistan? Maybe.
Wow, is that weird?
What's interesting about that is that, okay, let's look at both of those wars, right? According to Ian Carroll, who was on with us on Tuesday or Wednesday, we discussed the George H.W. Bush's ties to opium, to heroin, a money laundering scheme, and them selling heroin to soldiers in Vietnam.
And billions of dollars.
And then you fast forward 30 years or 20 years to the invasion of Afghanistan, and who is president of Afghanistan while we invade? His son, George W. Bush. Wow. So both sons... involvement, at least questionable involvement in the heroin trades in two of the prime, what did you call them? The major...
Like the place where 90% of heroin comes from.
Yeah, it's
and what else were we doing there? What's the justification for being there? Al-Qaeda?
Yeah, guys in caves. Come on, bro.
It wasn't even it. Where did they end up finding Osama bin Laden? He was
on
in
a boat.
No, he was. Well, that's where they threw him off of, if you believe that. Yeah. But they found him in Islamabad. That's where I remember Obama's house, Islamabad. So that's what I remember. But it wasn't even Afghanistan. I believe it was. Let me find where he was.
Yeah, while you're looking for it, and just really quick, I want to tell the audience,
Pakistan.
guys. Pakistan.
Yeah, what?
Yeah, I was like, what the hell? Islamabad. Thank you guys. Hey, whoever's here, thank you guys. If you haven't subscribed yet, just really fast. And we have 2,000 live, I think, right now, Kel.
Hell
you guys,
yeah.
hey, like and subscribe if you can right now. Right there. Hit the subscription button. I appreciate it.
2000 live, and we're running a poll to see what's going to happen with RFK.
Okay.
These are the options. He will endorse Trump.
Okay.
That is at 76%. He will endorse Kamala. That's at 2%.
I'm part of the 2%.
He won't endorse either. That's 20%. And he won't show up.
Oh.
That's 2%.
Let me hit.
Wow, like his wife was. Oh.
That's a chat. I love you, Chad.
Let me hit you with something else that's crazy. So I was surprised to come across this fact because I looked pretty deeply into this topic of why the Shah of Iran was overthrown by MI6 and Jimmy Carter. So according to this guy, John Coleman, he says, Jimmy Carter toppled the Shah of Iran because of drugs. The Shah had nearly ended the lucrative opium trade run by the British, which they wouldn't tolerate. The U.S., acting as its special relationship with Britain, did the job. Despite the U.S. embassy takeover in Tehran, arms sales continued to Iran and under Khomeini. So when the Shah was there, 1 million people were addicted to opium. When Khomeini was overthrew him, 2 million people became addicted to it. So the Shah was trying to shut down the opium trade that was going through Iran. Wow. And then the British government and the U.S. government colluded to overthrow him.
Dude.
So they're willing to do that shit, like overthrow an entire country, destabilize the Middle East just to keep their drug trade going.
I mean, Brandon, dude, you're talking about trillions. I don't think people grasp it, bro. Like,
right.
You throw the word billion nowadays, isn't it weird? It used to be $1 million. You'd be like, wow, that guy's a millionaire. That doesn't mean shit anymore.
No.
Billionaire now is even like kind of, it's Brandon, Rob, it's trillionaires. Like Saudi families, those guys are
Rothschilds. Rothschilds are worth $25 trillion.
That doesn't even make sense, bro.
Yeah, that's the U.S. GDP.
Do you remember when Austin Powers, he's like $1 million? Yeah. And I was like, that is a lot of money, but I was also 11 when that movie
and
came
broke.
out. Yeah.
And broke.
At 11.
It's changed.
So, and like to put this in context, so like this chart right here, I think this is a bullshit number. It says one crime could account for 1.5% of the world's GDP. How do you make that number if you don't catch most of the crime?
That's a very good point.
So like, they're saying 320 billion right there for drug trafficking. I would imagine that that's 1% of the number if they're saying that a small number of drug trades are actually caught by the DEA because they're not trying to do it. And then it's confirmed that if you look at what Operation Gladio was, the CIA was selling heroin through the mafia to black neighborhoods in America to fund the war against socialism in Italy, and they're laundering the money through the Vatican Bank. So
what the hell?
Like this,
like
the government's been deeply involved in drug trafficking for a long time, at least in some degree, one way or the other. Like not directly involved, but with layers of crime groups in between.
And look at what they do with oil. Like oil is the legitimate product that they all come out and say
that's that's one that
and it's so many of the key power players that are involved in oil are also involved in drugs. They have all this infrastructure set up to get oil around the world. They use it for drugs as well. And the fact that Afghanistan with its poppy fields has always been a core part of this. There's a reason that Afghanistan for a long time was called the grave of empires, where these giant empires would extend their borders and then they'd go into Afghanistan. They'd get mired down there for decades. And then as a symbol of their collapse, they'd pull out of Afghanistan. Sort of makes you think what happened when we pulled out of there in a hurry 2 years ago. Yeah. But people want to control that because it's probably more valuable than the oil industry.
Of course. The poppy fields?
The drug trade probably generates infinitely more money than the oil does.
You could grow it. Oil is finite. Drugs aren't finite. Yeah.
Exactly.
And by the way, real quick, guys, if you want to know more about this, I'm doing a deep breakdown in my secret society Telegram group, the Forbidden Book Society. We'll put it in the link below. It's growing like crazy.
Nice.
You're in the chat, bro.
You're in the chat, bro.
Oh, yeah. I keep forgetting the
chat,
yeah. So throw it in there.
Yeah,
do you have the link?
there.
Oh, my man.
What's the craziest drug you've ever done?
The craziest drug? Okay, I did hippie flipping. I don't know if you heard about this.
Is that like cow tip?
No, you drop like you drop.
You just grab an old guy that has like a mesh and a hemp hat. You just throw him over.
I didn't think.
Wow.
Wait, what you said before the show? Can I tell drug stories here?
No,
I mean, this was a past life. We're all in different points of our life
Yeah.
today than we were then.
I've lived a perfect existence, so I can't contribute.
Nothing?
Yeah, nothing.
I don't do that garbage. I get the best high from the most high.
No, I have a political future. I would never have done anything wrong.
Well, anyhow, college, was bored, went to go see my friends and whatever, and they're like, "Oh, we're going to this electronic party." They gave me, like, a little tab of acid,
I've never
and
done acid.
an M.
Came from
and
the
then
CIA,
I went
by
to
the
the
way.
party, and I felt like I was melting to it.
Oh no.
It was the best thing ever, but you can't do it twice. It's just terrible.
No, I'm not like I've done some crazy stuff. I mean, dude, I'm horrible. Even the edible gummies, Rob. Have you ever?
No.
I took two, like, for the first time. I smoked. I'm a lightweight, a little high. I'm funny. It's crazy, munchy. Okay, if you've never done it, somebody gave me, and you know how it's always the people that find somebody that's never done them. It's always like, no, just take a half, but it's like 10 times it's horrible. So I eat this thing, and if you taste a little bit of the weed, but then you're like, I could just I'll finish it. And I remember the guy, Rob, going like this. You shouldn't have done that. I swear to you, and I remember this. I'm sitting on a couch, guys, and everything's happening. The party's going on, and I just saw myself, like, looking around, and I'm not joking. I had to go into the other room, all right? He had a Bible. I put the Bible on my chest, and I'm not even joking. He closed the door so I'd be okay, no seeing crazy stuff, and I heard, and I'm like, ah! By the way, never, ever, ever did it or doing that ever again.
So remember those commercials that they showed this at, like, this is your brain on drugs.
Yeah.
And they would crack the omelet in. But then remember at one point they had one where a girl, like, flattened down on a couch and fell down. So I worked for a company, and I didn't know what they did at first. I worked for a radio company, and they partnered with a company called Magical Butter. And what it turns out they did was they made these machines that you would put cannabis in, and you would put butter in. They would mix it up, and then you get cannabis butter that you'd make edibles. Well, the first day I was there, I had no idea. I'm like, oh, this is cool, Magical Butter. I don't know. I didn't know people did that.
Wait, tell me, have you found it?
Oh, can you play this?
Yes.
Oh, all right.
So watch this, and I will explain how this comes into play.
Oh my God.
Sarah.
Oh my God!
That was me. That was me on the couch.
I can relate as a bigger guy. Edibles, they're the worst. They're the worst.
That's what they did. So I go there, and we're helping these people launch a podcast, and they wanted to film. And so they were showing us that, hey, we made all of this food. Would you like some? And this is post-production. And I'm like, oh, sure. So I started eating it, and it was an entire breakfast, but it was made with cannabis butter.
Oh
And I was
my
like,
God.
I was like, all right, I'm going to get going. And they're like, oh, you can't drive. And I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, oh, you just ate like a lot of milligrams. I don't even remember.
my
And I just remember him going, the word was a lot. And like it really slowed down when he said that. So they had to drive me home from the production studio. And I just remember I just kept slipping down. And at one point the guy's like, are you all right? And I'm like, just drive real slow. So yes, I've had a pass.
You're not alone. The chat is coming clean.
The chat's coming clean?
They're
Oh,
coming
wow.
clean.
Don't do drugs, kids.
One quick thing though, so like not that I've done anything crazy like this, but I'm very interested in the stuff that the government tries the hardest to suppress. Like it's always been weird to me how they put marijuana as a more dangerous drug, like a Schedule 1 drug, whereas they put something like mushrooms as a Schedule 3 drug, which means it's more, or vice versa. Or no, they put opiates as a Schedule 3, and they put marijuana as a Schedule 1, saying that opiates have productive medical uses and marijuana has no medical use at all.
Bro,
like,
and I've
bullshit.
been saying this forever. Great point, Brandon. The reason that they tried to keep weed from us, they couldn't do it forever. It makes you think. It expands your mind. You have fun. You're peaceful. You're eating. You're not trying to be violent. Why do you think alcohol is up to that? Alcohol is the biggest. Just go drink, ruin your life, drink and drive, kill yourself, ruin your insides, get on medication. It's so ridiculous. They hide them, especially the medicinal purpose. Like, dude, CBD oil. I take it to sleep. I take it for this. I rub it on my shoulder. It works. No wonder why they kept
hate
it.
that.
Of course
want
they
you to be
do.
taking-
What's up, everybody? Vincent O'Shaughnessy here. If you want to see me and the entire Valuetainment crew, we will be at the Vault Conference September 4th through the 7th at the Palm Beach Convention Center, hosted by none other than Patrick Bet-David and featuring Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Guys, this is the place to be. If you are an entrepreneur and you want to level up, do not miss this opportunity. This is the best place to network. If you want tickets, go to thevaultconference.com. Do not waste time. This thing is going to sell out, and I will see you guys there. Peace and love. So if you like this clip, click right here. And if you want to see more like it, click right here. Stay angry, Patriots.